Hello there, dear friends, and welcome once again to the Relaxed Fantasy Review. Today, we're moving right along in our Humblewood series, talking about one of the classic 5th edition third-party books. Today, we're going to be talking about the Humble Folk. These are the races that live in Humblewood that don't belong to the bird folk umbrella, the bird folk being the dominant race of Humblewood. The humble folk, rather than being represented by birds, are instead represented by other forest creatures, specifically the mammals. Today we're talking about the Cervan. Cervan are deer people. Literally, they are people that resemble deer, except they are bipedal and they are regular human-sized creatures. We'll get into the details of their mechanics in just a moment. But before we do, I'd like to let you know, Relaxed Fantasy Review has memberships. For just $1 a month, you can support me here on YouTube and get a couple benefits. First, you get a little badge next to your name in the comments, letting folks know that you're a supporter. But also you get early access to my videos. I upload videos Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I upload them a day early for members only. So if that interests you, you can click the join button just below the video down there. I'd love to see you in the comments. And if it doesn't interest you, that's totally fine. Just liking and subscribing is a wonderful way to support my channel. Thank you very much for watching my content. So Cervans, and the Humblewood book in general, are an old-style race, and they actually come with preset ability score increases. Now, obviously, the rules in Tasha's say you can mix and match these, but I like to talk about them. The standard Cervan gets a +2 to their Constitution score, making them a pretty tanky race. This is a wonderful boost no matter what kind of character you're playing. It's always a secondary stat or tertiary, depending on your build, but it's certainly never something you want low. So I say 9 out of 10 for a +2 to Constitution. You also are medium-sized, which is good. I mean, most creatures are. I think that being medium-sized is a little better than being small-sized, so I give that 10 out of 10. That's about as good as it gets. You also have a standard 30-foot movement speed, which is, again, totally standard, nothing wrong with that. That's 9 out of 10. Then you gain the practical feature. Cervans are, in fact, practical creatures. They gain an extra skill proficiency, and you can choose between athletics, medicine, nature, or survival. I mean, that's a pretty solid spread of features depending on what your build is. You know, if you're strength-based, athletics is amazing. If you're intelligence-based, nature is awesome. If you're wisdom-based, survival is great. I could give or take medicine, but you know, you've got a lot of choices here, and I say that one of those is probably worth an 8 out of 10. And then you have the Surge of Vigor ability. Once per day, if an attack drops you more than half of your remaining hit points, you can immediately regain 1d12 plus your Constitution modifier. This actually is a very, very fun feature because it scales with your hit points. At the very beginning of the game, when you've got like 10 or 15 HP, an attack that deals, 5 to 8 damage will knock you down, and then just immediately you'll get that hit points right back. And this actually is made better by the fact that it works if it knocks you to 0 hit points, which is actually incredible. This is almost like a built-in death ward. Now, it is just once per long rest, but that's actually amazing for a racial feature. Like, it's better than those ones that say when you drop to 0, you drop to 1 instead, once per long rest. I mean, obviously, you choose when you use it. So if you waste it on earlier stuff, you can't bounce back from 0. I would personally be saving it for if I drop to 0. But it's a great feature, and I give it 9 out of 10. Finally, the Cervans live in the Humblewood world, and they speak the common language, which is birdfolk. But they also speak their own language, Cervan. So they are bilingual. You don't get to pick your languages, but being bilingual is worth an 8 out of 10 as far as I'm concerned. And then you get 2 sub-races to pick from. You can either be a Grove Cervan or a Pronghorn Cervan. The Grove Cervan grants you a +1 to your dexterity. As your secondary ability score increase, dexterities arguably the greatest ability stat in the game, so a +1 to that is an 8 out of 10. You also get an increased movement speed up to 35 feet, which pushes them up above the standard medium-sized creature, and that's 10 out of 10 right there. Then they get a funny little feature called the Standing Leap. Basically, they have a standard jump, whether they run up to jump or not, which is 30 feet for a long jump and 15 feet for a high jump, which is a huge jump. You can move basically your entire movement speed as a hop without needing to run up, and you can jump 15 feet straight in the air with no bonuses at all. This is the kind of feature that I would honestly stack the jump spell onto, even though I don't like that spell. Now, obviously jumping is situationally useful, but a jump that's that big, I can think of a lot of situations it would help. So I actually give it an 8 out of 10. That's a pretty decent feature. And, if that wasn't enough, you have the Nimble Step power, which states that opportunity attacks made against you always have disadvantage. Which is really fun. Like, that's the kind of thing that really lends itself to monk or rogue builds that are very hit and run, the skirmisher mindset. Because, yeah, there are feats, like the mobile feat, which take opportunity attacks away. Rogues can disengage with their bonus action. But if you have to take an opportunity attack, it can really suck. And this Nimble Step power just says, nah, they always have disadvantage. It's just hard to hit you regardless when you're running off. And that's great. I give that 9 out of 10. And I give the Grove Cervan a 9 out of 10 overall. Their subrace really brings a lot to the table. Then the other type of Cervan is the Pronghorn. They get a +1 to their strength to tack onto their constitution. This definitely lends itself to a stronger kind of fighter or barbarian style build, but strength isn't as universally useful as dexterity. So for a +1, I just give that a 6 out of 10. They also get the Robust Build feature. This doubles your lifting and carrying and pushing and pulling capacities. Moderately, it can be okay, but most games don't track that unless you're genuinely trying to lift large objects for some reason. It's not going to come up much unless you play very, very intense games where you track all your weight. I say this is 6 out of 10. Probably not going to be used often. And then finally you have antlers. In my head, all Cervans should have antlers, but I guess these ones are strong enough to use as weapons, because you can do an unarmed strike with the antlers for a D6 weapon. And considering that they don't take your hands to hold, that means you could still have weapons or spell focuses in your hand while using unarmed strikes. You also have a charge attack, where if you move towards a creature, it's actually 30 feet, or is it 20 feet? It's 20 or 30 feet. You can move towards a creature, and if you do so, you can bonus action attack using your antlers, and that can push them 10 feet against a saving throw. So when you combine those both into one feature, bonus action attack with a push, and a decent unarmed strike, I'd say that's 9 out of 10. That's a decent thing to throw onto any build in case you run out of weapons or just need to attack while running up to a creature. But because of the lackluster other features in the subrace, I'm actually giving the Pronghorn an 8 out of 10. The Grove Cervan definitely sells itself more to me as more versatile and more generally useful. Pronghorn's a little more specialized. Still good if you want to play into that specialization. Overall, the Cervans are a wonderful race. I think that they've got a lot of really cool features, and I could see you just uprooting them out of Humblewood and throwing them into any D&D game. Playing a deer person? That's just interesting. I find that really, really cool. And so, yeah, Grove Cervan, 9 out of 10. Pronghorn Cervan, 8 out of 10. Overall, great race. This has been the Relaxed Fantasy Review. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe down below. Have a look for the join button down there, as well as a link that I'll leave for the Deck of Many's Humblewood campaign. It is a classic third-party book, and I highly recommend you check it out for yourself. Have a good one, my friends.